Hey everyone, Sarah B. Hansen here today. I thought it would be a fun day to teach you a lesson on how to paint some white puffy clouds, as those are outside right now here my studio in Bend, Oregon. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a cloud painting and teach you all, and you can follow along step by step, and I hope you enjoy the painting. Okay, so to begin with, let me see here. I've got 300-pound hot press paper that I'm painting on. You can paint on 140-pound cold press. And so that's gonna be my paper. I've got some paint squeezed out here. I'm using a smaller palette today just so it's easier to see. This is a travel palette. I've got cobalt blue squeezed out. These are all Daniel Smith. I have French ultramarine blue squeezed out. It's a darker, cooler blue. I have cobalt teal blue right here in this area. For the landscape in the bottom, I have serpentine genuine down here, quinocridone burnt orange down here in this area, and let's see, in this lovely little pin right here, I've got Aussie red gold, just for a touch, just for a pop. I have a sponge and a tank of, not a tank, a container of water. So to begin with, what you'll want to do is just draw cloud shapes. You can kind of see mine here. Draw cloud shapes onto your paper in any shape you want to. Maybe go outside and look at the clouds and draw a few. Maybe look at a photo and draw some clouds and just kind of get an idea of what their shape might be. And then at about about an eighth of the way up, you can see right here, I've started with the landscape line very lightly drawn in, just kind of a bluff here, like maybe it's in Utah or an area like that, maybe Eastern Oregon. Start with ultramarine blue, which is this darker, cooler blue up in the corner here, and in the cloud, in the sky holes. And by sky holes, I mean the areas of sky that aren't covered by clouds, so the blue sky, okay? We're gonna be painting on dry paper today. So I will wet my brush, drag it across the surface of the water container, and go ahead and go in and grab some of that ultramarine blue. This is a nice, dark, intense blue, and I'm stirring it up here. I'm getting it homogenized so there's not a lot of little chunks of paint. So it's kind of like milk, I would have to say. So following the outline of my cloud structure, I'm going to come in with a dark, pretty solid amount of ultramarine blue and fill in the sky holes behind my clouds up here in the top corner. Wet my brush off, dampen it so that I can get some nice soft edges. And by soft edges, I mean I'm just running the brush along the top of the cloud form so that it can begin to feel like it's a soft, puffy cloud, okay? And then I've got another cloud hole down here, so I'm gonna grab some ultramarine blue with a little bit of cobalt blue mixed in, and going to draw in the bottom of this cloud. So we've got a sky hole here, and I'm filling in the area at the top of the cloud below it. I'm rinsing off my brush, dragging it across the sponge so it's a little bit damp, and I'm going to soften some of those edges again. So we've got some nice little puffy clouds that don't have a lot of hard edges. Now, while the paint's still wet, I'd like to add some variety to my blue. So I'm rinsing off my brush, and I'm going to get a hold of some of this cobalt teal. It's just such a yummy color. And while the paint's still wet, I'm dropping it in to a couple of these areas here to just add some texture and color, and maybe lead the eye down into the painting. Okay, rinsing off my brush. Now you can kind of see I've got a cloud shape. I'm gonna dampen that just a little bit more here. I've got a cloud shape here, and then the sky hole, and then I have another cloud shape here. Let me see what I'm doing here. Then I think I've got a sky hole, couple sky holes down here. So let's go ahead and find those. It becomes a little bit more fainter and warmer at the bottom here. So I'll hold this up so you can see it. I'm looking at my sky hole here. Okay. So here's, it becomes a little bit lighter in value and a little bit warmer as it approaches the horizon line. Softening my brush and going along the top of that and the bottom of it too, just to break up that line. Okay. And a touch of cobalt teal right in that same area there. Rinsing my brush off. And then right along here, I'm going to add another cloud, a little streaky cloud, and then come down into my horizon line. And as I approach my landscape or horizon line, I'm going to almost be at pure water. I don't want a lot of pigment down there because, as I said, it's going to be a little bit darker and more intensely saturated. Maybe I didn't say that. But as it approaches the over top, sorry, darker and more intensely saturated at the top, and as it approaches the horizon line, it becomes lighter, fainter, warmer. Okay, so what we're gonna do is grab some of that cobalt now. I'm not really dipping into the ultramarine blue as much anymore. So I'm grabbing some cobalt, and I've got another sky cloud in here, streaking along like this. I'm being pretty quick, so I'm painting fairly rapidly so that I don't get these edges to be super hard, because they'll get hard right away. So I'm softening the edge here. I'm actually going to bring this all the way down to my horizon line by just dampening the paper and bringing that color down right up to the point of where that landscape starts. And because it faded away pretty quickly, I'm going to add just a little bit more blue. Bring it right up to that horizon line. So we want it to get nice and light down here. Don't fiddle with it too much. I'm going to soften this line right there because it feels a little too harsh. Okay. So I'm going to wet my brush, dry it off a little bit because I don't want it to be super wet here, otherwise it will shoot way up into there. And just a little bit of quinocridone burnt orange. And here's my bluff right out here, and you can see it start to shoot into that that blue up there. Okay, I'm gonna rinse it off, grab some green, and now I'm mixing the green and the quinocridone on my palette, but I'm not over stirring, because over stirring makes it become pretty boring pretty quickly. And a little bit of Aussie red gold. Just quickly, some suggestion down here, nothing crazy. Now it starts to become a little bit more of a landscape than it looked like earlier. So what I want to have you do right now is go ahead and take a minute and blow dry your paper so it's nice and dry. Okay, so hopefully your paper is nice and dry now, and there's no dampness going on anywhere. Because the next part we want to do is we want to add a little bit of shadow and shading in these clouds. You can see in this example right here, you want to go ahead and put in, you know, the clouds, the sun's hitting the cloud here and it's coming through and it's going through this mass, and there's a little bit of shadow underneath. And that shadow is, typically speaking, kind of a warmish gray or kind of just a gray, a mix of colors. So to get that gray, we're going to mix quinocridone burnt orange and ultramarine blue on our palette, and then to get it a little bit more homogenized, and then lay it in and soften some edges. Okay, so let's go ahead and start that. So getting my brush damp, wet again, rinsing it off, making sure it's nice and wet, but I'm going to dab it on the towel just to dry it off a little bit. And going in to grab a little bit of ultramarine blue and a little bit of quinocridone burnt orange. So what we want here is a stronger, on the blue side, gray. So we're mixing it on the palette to get it kind of homogenized. I'm not mixing it on the paper right now, just right on the palette, so we're actually stirring it there. We want quite a bit of water in it so that it doesn't end up being too dark. We don't want it to be dark. We want it to be very light and suggestive. So coming in with this mixture at the bottom of my clouds, because now we're seeing shadow, right? So we're going to find that shadow and find that shape at the bottom. You see that? Okay, good. Okay, at the bottom of this cloud. And there's a little bit of the shape up here. The cloud maybe comes around. Now we're going to soften the edges of the top part of the cloud. Okay, I'm going to pull in a couple of these shapes down here just because it looked a little odd. Okay, you can see that cloud shape starting to form. Going into my color again, I'm going to go down into this cloud now and begin to find the shape in that cloud. And if you look at the cloud picture, you'll be able to see those shadows, or if you go outside and look at the cloud, you'll be able to see those shadows quite easily. If you're just using your imagination, sometimes it's kind of hard to remember what clouds look like. So a photograph or something like that is really nice to have to look at, or actually painting outside. I'm putting a little shadow on this skinny one down here as well, and just to give it a feeling that it's got some form. Now while this one's still wet, I'm actually going to grab just a little bit more muted color up here with a touch of teal in it, because I want this one to have a little more shadow. This is a little more angry, like it's got some moisture bubbling up in there. And some other colors too. Softening the top edge there. Okay, and then because I feel like this guy needs just a little bit more, I'm going to mix my ultramarine blue and my quinocridone again and grab that little more of a shadow right under this guy. Okay. Now what we're going to do is take a second and blow dry this again. Okay. So after you blow dry, you can take a minute if you want to and adjust any values. You can darken in areas of the clouds if you want to get them a little bit darker, because once you dry your watercolor, the paint does fade a little bit when it dries. And so sometimes those values will become a little bit more weak and light. So you might want to glaze it, and by glazing you just basically dry the whole thing, and then you come in and lay a nice light wash over that. This really didn't need much glazing at all, so basically finished it up by, you can see right down here, a little bit of a Sharpie coming in here just to find that bluff. Just, you know, light lines, don't do a lot of drawing. Well, you could. Gosh, this is your painting. What am I saying? Anyway, this is the cloud painting portion. Here's this one. Here's that one side by side. Isn't that fun? I hope you guys have a great time painting clouds. I sure did, and it's a beautiful day out there. Take some pictures of clouds and paint them just by looking at them. And everybody, please stay safe, please stay healthy. And this is Sarah B. Hansen. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy this lesson. Oh, and email me, Facebook me or something. Let me know how these turned out. And if you enjoyed it, or if there's anything you don't understand or whatever. So anyway, y'all take care. Bye-bye.